Okay, let's get started. Welcome everyone. Om. Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Graditam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Vritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam anusandadhami Bhagavad Gita bhavatveshini Namostute vyasa vishala buddhe Pulla ravindayata patra netra Yena tvaya bharata taila purnaha Prajvalito jnanamayah pradipaha Prapanna parijataya totra vetraikapanaye Jnanamudraya krishnaya Gitamrutatuhe namaha Sarvadharman parityajya Mamekam sharanam vraja Aham tva sarvapapebhyaha Mokshayishyami ma shuchaha. So we are continuing on chapter 4. We are, I think, crossed the middle line. We are going to be doing at least 3 or 4 more shlokas today. And in the reflection time, as I mentioned, I'm at least starting to put some comparative shlokas as far as themes are concerned. You know, themes like action, knowledge, meditation, those kind of things. So maybe in a week, I had said next week, but today I'm not prepared to discuss some of this, but say maybe next week I'll start with taking one chapter at one concept at a time, and then we will look at some shlokas. What is the difference in that particular concept as far as chapter 2, 3, and 4? And maybe we can, I think I need to think. I was thinking whether we should start with the knowledge or should we start with action. So it could be one of those two, maybe taking action and looking at the comparison shlokas, something. So, but we won't spend too much time in here to do the comparison. At least we'll present it and then we'll mull over it, So last time we had discussed this briefly, what is the difference between Brahma and Brahman? And I had promised you that I would put together, a chart, and the copy that I'd taken from Self-Unfoldment did not come out well. So I made a chart here, and you can see from here in this chart, really the difference between Brahman and Brahma. So Brahma is here and Brahman is over there. Okay. And if anyone wants again a copy of this chart, and again, I keep promising I don't do a lot of things. This one, I will put it into the WhatsApp, and maybe, over the weekend, I'll have to think about putting all the PDFs in the drive. But so the idea is, let me start from the top-down approach. We are used to the bottoms-up approach. Bottoms-up approach is we know who we are, but we don't necessarily know what our higher self is. So here I'm going to start from the topmost. So essentially, it is none other than Brahman everywhere. Okay. We are that Brahman, we are that Atman, we are that Brahman, that absolute consciousness which is pervading everywhere. And it is that Brahman with the Maya Upadhi. Okay, so this is Nirupadika, or God in the form of Nirupadhi, which is absolutely no upadhis, no instruments, no layers. But once with the Maya Shakti, which is represented by Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, here the Sattva aspect of it, now you see in the form of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. So we have the creator, we have the sustainer, and the constructive recycler. You know, we like to put everything in positive terms. We don't want to call Shiva as a destroyer or annihilator as it is shown here, but actually as constructive recycler. So Brahma is the creator. So in the realm again of Brahman with the layers represented by Maya, and in there the sattvic quality is represented by Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. So that aspect is where I'm showing here. Of course, the others are not that important. And again, this is something that was done for self-unfoldment. Matter of fact, I think we had worked on this before, and then Divakar actually worked on this a lot more and created this entire chart here. So Brahma married to Saraswati, Vishnu, of course, married to Lakshmipati. Lakshmipati is Vishnu, and then we have Shiva married to Parvati or Uma or Durga, you know. So this is the relationship I wanted to explain about Brahmaji and Brahman. Okay. Okay. If there are any questions or anything, please put it on the WhatsApp and then we can follow up next time. Okay. So we are looking at the variety of yajnas. And today we are going to be looking at even more yajnas. Last time we looked in detail at 26 and 27. 28 we just touched upon. Today we will go into more of these. And as you know, thanks to Amlan again for raising the question of the relation of yajna to our lives. What is really yajna? Why should we care about knowing what yajna is in this, 2022 almost? Why does the word yajna keep coming up? Why is it necessary? So I've prepared a few slides on that too, and we will walk through it. And you will see that this word yajna keeps coming up in Bhagavad Gita. We already encountered that in chapter 3. Again, comparative shlokas, chapter 3, chapter 4, yajna is discussed there. It was only introduced as a term in chapter 3. We are going to be looking at it a little more deeper. And I think many of you would be able to relate to this. In India, we always look at our lives in the form of some sacrifice or the other. I mean, that concept of sacrifice is so big in the Indian culture. We see our parents totally, sacrificing their entire life for their children. And in many different ways, the whole aspect of charity, everything is considered as a sacrifice. Every moment of our life is considered as a sacrifice. But the important thing to remember is, when we think about sacrifice, we almost think that we are giving up. There is some kind of a loss. But actually, it is not a loss. There is a big gain from the sacrifice. The gain is we are trying to give up our lower self, or the self which we, it's almost like in dieting, for example, we are giving up the pounds so that we can look thinner or whatever, right? So that same thing, but here we are talking about it not at the level of the body, not at the level of pranas and everything, but at a much higher self. Like, for example, our identity with Brahmanhood, our identity with Brahman, that is what we are gaining towards. So yajna needs to be looked at in that sense. We are not losing something, but we are actually gaining a lot more. And in that sense, the word karma yoga itself is also going towards that element, which is, it is that principle of yajna. Karma yoga is also a karma yoga is nothing but yajna or sacrifice, where I'm giving up something which, I'm shedding off things I really don't want. And this is the aspect which is actually coming out in all these things. It is that aspect starting from the body, starting from the prana, starting from everything. So that's the aspect we will be going a little further today. So let's just chant very quickly 18 to 28. अथ चतुर्थोऽध्यायः श्रीभगवान् उवाच कर्मण्यकर्म यः पश्येत् अकर्मणि च कर्म यः स बुद्धिमान् मनुष्येषु स युक्तः कृत्स्न कर्म कृत् यस्य सर्वे समारम्भाः कामसङ्कल्पवर्जिताः ज्ञानाग्निदग्धकर्माणं तमाहुः पण्डितं बुधाः त्यक्त्वा कर्मफलासङ्गं नित्यतृप्तो निराश्रयः कर्मण्यभिप्रवृत्तोऽपि नैव किञ्चित् करोति सः निराशीर्यत चित्तात्मा त्यक्त सर्वपरिग्रहः शारीरं केवलं कर्म कुर्वन्नाप्नोति किल्बिषम् यदृच्छालाभसन्तुष्टः द्वन्द्वातीतो विमत्सरः समः सिद्धावसिद्धौ च कृत्वापि न निबध्यते गतसङ्गस्य मुक्तस्य ज्ञानावस्थितचेतसः यज्ञायाचरतः कर्म समग्रं प्रविलीयते ब्रह्मार्पणं ब्रह्म हविः ब्रह्माग्नौ ब्रह्मणाहुतं ब्रह्मैव तेन गन्तव्यं ब्रह्म कर्म समाधिना दैवमेवापरे यज्ञं योगिनः पर्युपासते ब्रह्माज्ञावपरे यज्ञं यज्ञेनैवोपजुह्वति श्रोत्रादीनीन्द्रियाण्यन्ये संयमाग्निषु जुह्वति शब्दादीन् विषयानन्ये इन्द्रियाग्निषु जुह्वति सर्वाणीन्द्रियकर्माणि प्राणकर्माणि चापरे आत्मसंयमयोगाग्नौ जुह्वति ज्ञानदीपिते द्रव्ययज्ञास्तपो यज्ञाः योगयज्ञस्तथा परे स्वाध्यायायज्ञानयज्ञाश्च स्वाध्यायायज्ञानयज्ञाश्च यतयः संशितव्रताः. So we finished up till here. So the idea is, how is this yajna, how is this word yajna really tied to our lives, and why should we be studying about it now, and why do I really care about it? That is the question. So just maybe a quick thing to all of you. How would you compare this word yajna, or what is the relevance of yajna to our lives? If there's one word that you can think of, I would love to hear from you. Yeah, Amlan, anything coming to your mind? You are muted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yajna to me means spirit of sacrifice
Spirit of
and
sacrifice.
spirit of selflessness.
Okay, very good.
So, like any activity, when we do with a selfless spirit, that become yajna. Like we are cooking for community,
Right.
we are doing some service to community kind of thing. So that's what I think
Okay.
yajna means to me.
So let me ask, if you have to explain spirit of sacrifice, selflessness, etc., to your son, would he get it just like that? Would he not come to you and say, Papa, why should I give up what I have? Why should I sacrifice? My neighbor is not sacrificing for me. Of course, he takes care of his yard and I take care of my yard. All that is great. And we lead a very, good coexistence. But why? Why should I do it? That's the question.
Yeah.
In the American way, because it has to be something which is which should be applicable for the whole universe, right? The word yajna. So that's the challenge for us, and this is why I thought first we need to really understand how it relates to us. And the word that for me resonated the most is the word sustainability. So if you talk about sustainability, now you'll have the people from Wall Street looking up to you. You can look at, the university spend a lot of time on research. Our children would be quite happy that you're talking about it in the word of sustainability and environmental sustainability and everything, So this is exactly what the word yajna comes to. The yajna is really tied to, I would say, something called environmental sustainability. We are so focused in US on economic sustainability. We think that the economy has to be continuously growing. If you don't do this, there's going to be heavy jobs lost. And you know how it is. We look at this economic index by the number of jobs that are lost because of the COVID or because of maybe the Ukraine crisis that's going on. All this is how we look at the earning potential of people. And we think, people cannot go, people have what is that? The check, what check is that? Which unemployment checks, which need to go out. All these things have to be taken into account, right? So this is how we look at from a very individual perspective. But then our Shastras have gone way beyond that. So again, looking at sustainability, we look at the solution to the economic sustainability problem, just as an example, okay? Not that I'm putting down iPhone or anything. I also have an iPhone here. But the point is, when we have to sustain this economic sustainability, we are constantly looking at things like constantly upgrading ourselves. That is how we look at economic sustainability, because that is what is going to lead to jobs and everything. But a true example for what I'm experiencing is right now, my parents, for example, they have a very old iPad, which is 10 years old. And now we're thinking of upgrading it. We're going to get a new iPhone. But the thing is that we are literally forced to buy this new iPad because the companies have done it in such a way that in the old iPad, you can no longer put any new, not just new applications, but even the existing applications. My parents are so used to looking at only Gmail. And now suddenly Gmail, disappeared from the computer because Gmail did some enhancements. And that enhancements, the iPad iOS system cannot sustain it. So that economic sustainability leads to more and more more and more upgrades and everything. But in the midst of all this, the key thing is, are we really looking at nature? This is the important aspect. Today, we may be creating more and more newer iPads, more at this one. But Mother Nature, at the end of the day, is the one who's suffering because of this, because of total, we just don't think about it. We're not mindful of it. We are ruthlessly trying to do this. And this is the kind of model that is continuously happening, and it will continue to happen. That is the biggest flaw of the sustainability model when we look at it from an economic point of view, which is why we have to constantly be aware of the environmental thing. And that is the reason why we find that really we have to question for ourselves, are we looking at economic models or are we looking at environmental models? This is the reason why we see that our rishis are looking at sustainability. They looked at sustainability long time ago. And that is the reason, in fact, this aspect of sustainability in terms, and they coined this word yajna, it is not, if you look at how we said yajna is giving up our lower self and moving higher, moving from literally, maybe that is where our, let me go back to, sorry, I'll have to go all here. In this, if you look at the sustainability as far as this chart is concerned, we are somewhere down below, where I'm an individual human being with organs of perception, organs of action, and everything. And slowly I have to actually move up all the way from where I'm down to recognizing my true identity as Brahman. So the word yajna is really sustainability from that point of view of giving up my lower self, or in my mind. I'm a physical body. It's not that I can just shed off my physical body like how a snake would give up its layer, right? Snakes do that. They can give up a layer and keep moving, but we can't do that. For us, it is only in our mind. And that is why we have given the superior intellect to recognize how I can move from the lower self to the higher self, right? So let me go through all these slides here. So with that in mind, we see that the rishis actually talked about the word sustainability in a different way. They talked about it in the form of yajna, and this was actually brought about as the main ritual. And if you talk about religion, and this is why Arjuna, when Krishna introduced the word yajna, Arjuna's mind was, wait a minute, Krishna, you're talking about that yajna where all these people, they get together in the form of a party and they put swaha, they put a lot of ghee and everything. Are you talking about that? But then Krishna, of course, he's kindling, he is actually pushing Arjuna to look at the word yajna in a much higher level. So all these Vedic mantras, everything, suktas, and in Rig Veda, there are so many hymns which are connected with praise of the environment. Rig Veda is known for that, for the aspect of it. And then we see that in chapter 3, this aspect of parasparam bhavayantaha, that aspect of mutual dependence on each other, that aspect was brought about. And then in the suktams, the shanti mantras that we chant, the sahana bhavatu, asatoma sadgamaya, then swasti prajapya paripalayantam, all these suktam, all of them are basically talking about really environmental sustainability. And then also when you think about rain, rain, you could call this as the KPI for a sustainable system. It's the amount of rain you receive is actually directly linked to the prosperity of our environment. So all this is so beautifully discussed in all the Vedas. And that aspect of it is really what is shown in this model here. But unfortunately for us, we look at this model and say, oh, this is so ancient. But it is not. Every aspect in here is so much steeped in actually Indian knowledge systems, the way these bricks are even laid, the geometry as to why you have to have three. In this picture, of course, it shows 3 layers because it's a painting, or it's a picture. But there is a huge amount of science in how this whole yajna is being defined and delineated, So that aspect of it is why yajna is an important aspect. And in this yajna, again, Brahmarpanam, which shows the 6 areas where the word yajna touches. Yajna refers to the performer. Yajna refers to the material by which you're doing yajna. Yajna is that fire. So yajna is that ghee. Everything. And then the result, what you get is also yajna, which is the dissolution of my lower self, reaching to a higher self. So today we, again, going back to simple example, we spend a lot of time sacrificing our pounds in the body, or, doing all those things, or maybe doing hot yoga for pranayama, in the form of for pranayama, and in that level of thing. And we are also, exercising a mind looking outward towards newer objects and everything. We are actually going much lower in our evolution, whereas our rishis are teaching us how to go higher in ourselves, reach higher to do this. So that is the idea behind how the yajna was devised. And in chapter 3, we had all these, I just wanted to, as a comparison, I said I'm not doing comparison, but you can see a little bit of comparison to chapter 3. Saha yajna praja srishtva purovacha prajapatihi anena prasavishvidvam eshavos tvashta kamadukha. That was one shloka. Then taidartan apradayabhya yo bhumte stena. The word stena we discussed. Stena means a thief. The idea is, again, in this era of sustainability, in this idea of sustainability of yajna, it means that if I'm doing it only for myself, then I'm a thief. Then bunjate tve tvagam papaha ye pachantyat atma karanat. This is if I'm cooking only for myself without giving somebody, then I'm a thief. So this is the whole idea by which we had discussed. And that's why this yajna and sustainability is such an important thing for us, to recognize how I can have a peaceful coexistence in my daily life. Every moment, every action needs to be taken in that sense. And that's why we had the 5 yajnas we had talked about before: the Bhuta yajna, the Manusha yajna, Deva yajna, the Rishi yajna, and Brahma yajna, which is for the Rishis, and Pitri yajna for the forefathers. So just wanted to give that short. I know it's about 15-minute introduction to yajna and sustainability, but does that answer your question, Amlan? And does that help everyone see the relation of yajna with today's world?
Yeah, I think this is a very nice concept. I never thought about this sustainability together with this. This is a good one. So now, so we are talking about sustainability only with respect to the environment for this, or we also include like balancing between economic and environmental kind of thing, or we are only talking about environmental sustainability?
So the way the rishis thought about was, if you take care of the environment, the economic environment takes care of it by itself.
By itself. Okay, got it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Because the idea is, if I see myself not as an individual, but I'm connected to nature, and that is why that Parasparam Bhavayanta, those shlokas came about. And also with this idea that it's not just me my pranas. So this is where all the 5 layers we went to, panchakoshas, that panchakoshas, again, in relation to the environment, when I look at it, then automatically things happen. So that is how they looked at it. They never looked at it as even the concept of money probably was not there long time ago. Everybody did their jobs. Like, for example, I remember in Bhajagovindam, we discussed this shloka, in context with Bhajagovindam. I remember we discussed this aspect, like even among the 4 classes, the Brahmana, Shudra, Vaishya, and Kshatriya, it was the role of the Vaishyas to take care of from the economic standpoint. The economic sustainability was given to the Vaishyas. They were the ones who made sure that everybody had enough food to eat and everything. The Brahmanas are supposed to only study. They were not supposed to work for the sake of money at all. In fact, in India, there is this big thing that if you're giving knowledge, you don't take money for the knowledge,
Yeah.
So to answer your question about the economic versus environmental sustainability.
Yeah, this is a great way of explaining this. I think this will be can be explained too easily to kids here in America, I think.
Yeah, exactly. If we have to reach out to our own children, for them to how do you say, develop themselves, it's not just going to the Wall Streets and going to the big companies for the sake of high-paying jobs. Somehow the shift has to be made. I know it cannot happen immediately, or it definitely cannot be happen immediately. But even if 1% of this knowledge, if we give them, it can help them to have a better relation with the world, which will reduce that amount of stress in their lives. And, so in this connection, yeah.
I think,
go ahead.
I think one more thing I wanted to say. So this looks like that if you see American system here, it is mainly focusing on the economic development. So I think the environmental development or sustainability is in the form of awareness only. Sometimes they have some campaign kind of thing, but they are not mainstream. I think America should include this also in the mainstream study. I think then it will help, because all the kids and students I notice, they are very interested in environmental sustainability and they want to help kind of thing. But it is not mainstream thing for kids here.
Very good point. You're right. When they talk about saving the parks and the trees, especially the big in California and all that, there's so much amount of fires, for example. And so, this aspect of environmental sustainability comes in there. But even there, if we can bring in some amount of this Indian thinking, well, it is not like one person who I'm working with, he would say it is not Indian thinking, it is the knowledge. He says the knowledge, there is no such thing as Indian and Western. He said this knowledge has to be available for everyone.
Right.
Yeah. So I really liked Swami Swarupananda's quote, which I came across in this regard, where it is the intelligent management of wealth. And the Gita is called Yajna, the spirit of sacrifice, which involves sharing and reinvesting in society, what one has received from it. And this includes all natural resources, which again is the environmental sustainability. So anyway. So now if you keep this picture in mind, that it is environmental sustainability, and I'm sacrificing my lower self to a higher self, then the question arises, what are all the aspects of my lower self that I need to be aware of? First, I need to be even aware of what is my lower self, what are the aspects, and then think about how am I sacrificing those aspects, So that is the whole idea by which Krishna is now turning Arjuna's mind to think about yajna a little differently, And so to us, in our minds, to think differently, because we have been grown up in that Amar Chitra thing of yajna means fire, yajna means sacrifice. And a simple classic example, I in fact wrote an article on this yajna spirit about 20 years ago about the Cleveland Aradhana. Cleveland Aradhana is a music thing which happens. Everybody comes with a yajna spirit. Everybody brings their talents in different ways and makes that Aradhana work. 3,000 people, they come there to enjoy the music festival. Somebody will bring their organization skills. Somebody will say, I'll bring food. Somebody, the day of the Aradhana, they've always made it that no matter how many people come, we will serve. We won't charge a ticket for the food, The other days, they had to finally charge $5 or whatever for this, only to make some money for the festival. That also was sustainable. That was maybe the economic sustainability that they were working on. So in this regard, we saw the shloka, Daiva meva pare yajnam, yoginah paryupasate, brahmagna vapare yajnam, yajne naivopa juhvati. So juhvati, which is offered, what do we offer? First, we are offering to the gods, So here, the word yajna was taken as the gods could be, like we said, like Agni or Gayatri, which is shown here, like Indra, Varuna, all of them. But it is also could be like the prayers that we do to Ganesha to ward off obstacles or other kind of thing, like we said, Pada Puja, all these where we are offering my own ego. Actually, my lower self is my ego. This aspect of, Sunitha is doing it. If Sunitha does it, she will get some praise or some brownie points from the community. All these things is that aspect of it needs to be sacrificed for the common good. So that is the idea behind which we saw the shloka number 25. And then 26 shloka was, well, somebody may say that, well, I really don't have any talent. I don't have any money to offer. And so what do I really do? And so that is why we had this next shloka, which is Shrotra Deen Indriyan Yanye Sanyamagnishu Juhvati Shabda Deen Vishayan Anye Indriyagnishu Juhvati. So this, I wanted to spend a couple more points, which I didn't go into detail, but the idea behind here is, it says some offer hearing and others and other senses as sacrifice in the fire of the restraint of the mind. Others offer sound and other sense objects as sacrifice in the fire of the restraint of senses. So here, the objects outside are offered to the senses in the sense that the senses is considered as the fire. Okay. So the objects are offered to the fire of the senses. So the senses represent the fire and the objects are the offerings that are made. Now, one may wonder, what does that mean? Why should we offer it to the objects? So this is where that first line, Sanyam Agnishu Jukvati, is very important. So the Sanyam Agnishu, which is the control of the mind. So the idea behind this is trying to see how only what I want goes into the mind. Again, we are getting into the society where there is so much that is available, and I'm being tempted by more and more new things, and I'm trying to bring in all that into my mind. So this shloka is a kind of, okay, have a control on your mind. Don't let, everything just go into your mind. It's like this adage in Kindle Life we came across, eat the food, but let not the food eat you. Food is there for taking care of sustaining my body, but I cannot allow, when I'm not hungry, to constantly eat all these snacks and everything. And, we have so many snacks now, it's unbelievable. The amount of type of chips and, all kinds of things, which we are constantly putting it into our mouth, so the idea is to control the mind. So that's what is referred to here, is the fire of the restraint of the mind, controlling that aspect of it. So then in shlokas 27, where, he comes to saying that all the functions of the senses, sarvan indriyani karmani, prana karmani cha apare, atma sanyama yogagno juhvati jnana deepite. So here again, juhvati, which is offered to all the functions of the senses as well as the functions of the life force. Life force, as you know, is the pranamaya kosha, right? So the first layer was taken care of in the previous one, right, of the food sheath. The annamaya kosha was taken care of. Now we are coming to the pranamaya kosha. The pranamaya kosha, which is composed of, prana, udana, apana, udana, samana, and dhyana. So prana is the incoming breath, apana is the outcoming breath, and then we have the samana, which is digestion, dhyana, which is the digestion. What did I say? Prana, apana, samana, digestion, then dhyana, and then udana, which is the thinking aspect. So all this is part of the life force. When we say pranas, it includes all of them. So here, sarvan indriyani prana karmani chapre, I'm offering that into again the mastery of the mind. Atma sanyama yoga juhvati, which is kindled by knowledge. The idea is again, I'm not restraining myself by itself, but I truly understand the principle behind why I need to do this. It's really through proper discrimination where all the activities of the organs are controlled. And that is the kind of yajna which is practiced in 27. When we come to 28, now we are talking about literally about 5 different yajnas. So dravya yajnas, tapo yajnaha, yoga yajnas tatha apare, apare again referring to other people. So here he's, looking at how the different type of people, they are practicing these yajnas in different areas. So dravya yajna, tapo yajna, yoga yajna, then swadhyaya yajna, that is the yajna of studies, then jnana yajna, yataha samshitaha, so the yajna of wealth. Wealth in here indicates actually charity. And then the yajna of tapas, then the yajna of yoga, which is again, we can look at yoga as an integration of the mind. Yajna is done by others, the yajna of study, and finally of knowledge. All these things is considered here. So let's look at a little deeper into these 5 yajnas. Dravya yajna, I think last time we touched upon it. We said it is the yoga of doing charity. So some people may give charity of food, some people of clothes, or even money, all these things. And I think I touched upon it briefly last time, and that is why, in India, we have this aspect of pilgrimage. When you go for a pilgrimage, you're asked that, during your pilgrimage, try to give up something what you're too attached to. And again, this is the aspect of yajna as a sacrifice. Like, for example, people go to, what is it? Is it on Chardham or even to Kashi? Actually, you say, when you go to Kashi, you have to give up something, what you like the most. And I know in my family, when I was young, people would, sometimes give up something that they don't like. And then they say, I went to Kashi and I gave up this thing. But actually, it is not the case. You have to really give up something which you really enjoy the most. So whether it's a food item, or mostly I think it's a food item that, you're asked to kind of give up. And then tapo yajna, this is why we have inbuilt fasting, because we do too much of feasting. So Ekadashi fast, for example, is for that sake. And Ekadashi, which means 11, right? 11. So this is the 5 sense organs, the 5 organs of action, and 1 mind. That's the 11 things which you have to control during Ekadashi. But then again, people find always shortcuts, you know. I know in my house, for example, it's not that you are fasting the whole day. You'll have something else, some other carbohydrates to keep you going, you know, like the sabudana or whatever, right? That's how so that's the aspect of tapas. Swadhyaya here, you know, refers to all these kind of studies, whether it is japa, mantra chanting, all these things, they all come under Swadhyaya Yajna. And then we have the Jnana Yajna, Yoga Yajna, which is again integration of the mind. Ultimately, Jnana Yajna is the idea, is the best. He'll come to that towards the end. But whole idea he's trying to show is, I have to know why I'm doing this. You know, again, our kids in US are very good with why should I do this? That's, you know, they start asking that why and all that, but somewhere down the line, we lose that aspect of asking why. And we get so, you know, into the worldly things. By the time we come to 60 or 70, you know, our mind, it is impossible we don't ask this question, why? You know, the aspect itself doesn't come because we have become so numbed by the sense pleasures, right? So that's why the 5 yajnas were mentioned. So now let's chant shloka number 29, which is again one more yajna. Apane juhvati pranam, apane juhvati pranam, prane panam tatha pare, prane panam tatha pare, prana panagati rudva, prana panagati rudva, pranayama parayanaha, pranayama parayanaha, apane juhvati pranam, prane panam tatha pare, prana panagati rudva, pranayama parayanaha. So in the previous shlokas, 2 shlokas before, we talked about this giving up of the pranas also. So here, this shloka is focused a little more on that. So when we think about pranayama, right, we have simple pranayama is you take in breath and then you leave out. And in between, you sometimes have this hold, you know, you take in breath and then you hold the breath in your body for some time. You leave out and again you hold and then you continue again with taking this in breath. So the ratio varies depending upon our stamina on how we can do it. Typically it is, you know, you take in breath for about 4 count, you hold for 2 and then you leave out for 4 and again count for 2, that way, right? So that's the aspect where he's trying to show here, where the outgoing breath, apane, that is offered in the incoming breath. So this is also a form of yajna. So the outgoing breath is offered in the prana, in the incoming. And then prane apane tatha apare. Again, apare referring to, there are some people who are focused on this pranayama. And we see this. Some people may say, you know, I really cannot do yogas of the body. It is too much for me. But I can do this much. I can do this pranas, you know. So this is one form of control. So the incoming breath is then given in the outgoing. By restraint of these 2 courses of breath, prana and apana, gati rudva, one gets control over the life energies in the body. So again, here the way the Panchakoshas are listed, Now, when I pay more attention to, now people may wonder, how is this a yajna? What am I really sacrificing, right? Here, by me focusing my attention more on the pranayama, my mind now is not focused so much on the world, the sense organs, the sense pleasures. To that extent, I'm actually giving up my lower self to focus on this. So again, this is, some people may prefer this form of a sacrifice, this form of yajna. So in the light of what we discussed, it would mean that focusing on pranayama means giving up on the annamaya kosha, or the gross body, or the demands of the gross body. That's the idea behind the shloka here. Then moving on to shloka number 30, which is again talking about how I can make the mind even more subtler. So we talked about this last time. The whole idea about all these sadhanas is so that my mind becomes more and more pure. The purity of the mind is the only way that is within my control. And when the purity is there, then I'll be able to focus more on the knowledge which is imparted in the Shastras. So with that, the next shloka is now a restraint on food, ahara. Apare niyata haraha, apare niyata haraha, pranan praneshu juhvati, pranan praneshu juhvati, sarve pyete yajna vidaha, sarve pyete yajna vidaha, yajna kshapita kalmashaha, yajna kshapita kalmashaha. So here he's saying, apare, again others, niyata aharaha. Ahara, which means the diet. Niyata, which is well controlled, well regulated. Others with well regulated diet. What do? They offer as sacrifice the life breaths in the fire of prana. So pranan praneshu juhvati, sarve api ete yajna vidaha. So all these, this is the people who are the wise people, yajna vidaha, those people who know this, yajna kshapita kalmashaha. So their sins are totally destroyed. So Guruji has this really nice joke in this, he says about how one time there was this one person, there was a competition. There's a competition about food, because it's about ahara. The competition was, you have to have on how many laddus can you have within a period of time, that is the idea. So this guy won one contest and he said, sure, I want to participate, but just give me half an hour. Okay. So this judge says, okay, I'll give you half an hour. And so this guy goes and comes back in half an hour. And then he says, okay, I'm ready. The judge said, why? I mean, why did you take this half an hour? He said, well, I want to make sure I first practice and see how many laddus I can really eat in half an hour. And now I'm ready for the contest. Now I can eat any number of laddus. So, this guy not only had 50 laddus in half an hour and comes back and he's ready to have another, 50 some laddus for the contest, So, our Shastras really have such great, we do all this intermittent fasting these days, the 16-hour fast and all that, right? But in our Shastras, we have this thing about if we, eat in such a way that we eat only 50% of our stomach, which is full. I think many of you must have heard this formula. Always eat only 50% of what your stomach can handle. And then fill up 25% with water. And the rest, 25%, keep it empty. So this way, there is enough digestion movement in the bowel to take care of it. And so how do we practice this? So again, we practice when we are eating. I take a certain amount of food, whatever I think I need, break it up by half, and then put it on the plate. So that is one way, right? And that way I don't go for the buffet again or something. But the other thing is that even when I'm eating, can I really stop? That would be a little higher control, Can I stop at halfway and say, no, I'm done, but these are the kind of controls that our Shastras have given, and how we can practice the control at the food level for this. So now shloka number 31. I'm going a little fast here because I wanted to make sure that I give the principle of yajna, sacrifice. And now these are just, explaining how they're related. So 31. Yajnasheshtamridabhujaha yanti brahma sanatanam nayam lokostya yajnasya kutonya kuru sattama. So here, now Krishna is addressing Arjuna as Kuru Sattama. Kuru, again, dynasty. Oh, Arjuna, you're the best. Sat means, Satam, the best among the Kurus. Oh, best among Kurus. Yajna Shishtam Amrita Bhujaha. So Yajna Shishta, we saw this even earlier, those people who are enjoyers of yajna, that is, those who perform these yajnas, then when they perform the yajna, they have to distribute the prasad. It has to be shared. The result of the yajna has to be shared with others. Only when you share this, you will actually get the purity of mind. And that is the whole idea of the sharing aspect, which is important because it prevents us from being selfish or prevents us from really keeping the things only for myself. And so the eaters, which is again the eaters of the remnants of sacrifice, that is the nectar, they go to the eternal Brahman. Only when I'm prepared to distribute the prasad or whatever I'm doing, and this is not necessarily just for the yajna ritual, but also at work. When I work as a team and I give the credit generously to everybody, even though I may be working, not everybody may be performing to the expectation of how the team has to go. They all perform to the best of their own abilities. But the person who is really the leader of everyone should be able to distribute that credit generously in such a way that everybody is happy. So that's the idea behind the shloka here. So we will stop here. I thought I could do 2 more, but we will do that next week. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shantihi. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Let me stop sharing. And